Hi, welcome to the She Moves Mountains podcast. This is your host, Kamala Murphy. Thanks for joining us today as we talk about some of the juicy stuff we women experience that makes this life journey truly amazing. You know, the nitty-gritty, the love, the loss, the falling down and rising up, the getting lost and finding our way again. To our hearts, our happiness, and to the awareness that we can and do move mountains. Thank you for joining. Hi, this is Kamala Murphy. Welcome back to the She Moves Mountains podcast. As you know, this show is about this amazing life journey that we're on, the ups and downs, and the things that make it really rich and prove that we women are amazing and that we are meant to move mountains. This episode I'm entitling Finding a Faith That Fits. And it's really about finding a relationship with the divine that feeds your soul. Because a lot of us, I think, you may have not had the best experiences with churches and religions. So if you've listened to my first episode, I talked about being a mystic, and that in these episodes you would hear me talking about God a lot. And today is one of those. What I didn't mention in that first episode is that I really struggle with religion, at least religion as I've experienced it. And I may go on a little bit of a rant here because I've gotten burned by religion, and a lot of my friends have as well. Because it seems to me that a loving God and having a personal relationship with God, which I think is what we're asked to do by the divine. The divine wants us to have this intimate, nurturing, loving relationship with him or her or whatever. Because it's all of that, having that loving relationship does not necessarily equate to being religious. Because to me, religion is following a set of beliefs or doctrines about how things are for sure, and how we're supposed to be, and how we're supposed to behave. And I have some qualms about that. And the truth is that I've had the experience of really feeling like I had this intimate relationship with God for as long as I can remember. I was raised as a Catholic, and I still love the church. I'm really grateful for the teachings, but there's a lot that I just can't accept, the mysteries of faith aside. And maybe it has to do with some of the things that go on in the news. I know for sure the time the priest yelled at me when I was in the confessional was pretty much a turn off. That didn't feel like I was being held by a loving God. And throughout the years, I've studied a lot of the religions, and I find a lot of value in each one. And I've, there's part of me that's wanted to find the one that I could follow wholeheartedly, that I could embrace fully, and that embraced me fully. But so far, I just haven't been able to find that. And it's troubled me because somewhere along the line, in one of the teachings, and I don't know where I heard it, but I heard that it was important to pick one path, delve deeply, be completely committed to that path, and do all the practices and follow all the observances. So I really did want to find my one path. But the truth was, that in all of these faiths, all of these religions, that still small voice never said yes, jump in, if you will. And truthfully, maybe I let some of the failings of humans, the people who set up religions, um, maybe I let their failings influence me. I don't know. It's possible. Um, and if you have a religion, a faith that works for you, that feeds your soul, that is awesome. That's great. This is not meant to be a criticism of any of that. Um, but what if, like me, you can't say yes to one particular religion? A lot of people I know were turned off or even turned away by their religions. And when we equate God and religion, you know, if they've been turned away, you know, they wonder where does God fit in this? And have they been turned from God? I need to take a breath here. what what I found is something that works for me is it's almost like I have this Venn diagram in my head where you have those circles that all intersect. And so I've got Christianity is one circle, and Judaism is another circle, and Sufism or Islam is another, and Buddhism and Hinduism. And where they all intersect, that feels like that's where I can say yes. So that's sort of what I've done and taken as my religion. It's sort of a combination. And although many people would say that's not that's picking and choosing. What is it called? The buffet style of faith. Yeah, that's the one that seems to be working for me. Because the truth is, for my thought process, how can we really know what's what's really true? How can anyone be sure that what's true for them is true for the person who lives down the street or lives across the country or lives in another country altogether on the other side of the world? It's it's a quandary, and it brings up for me an experience that I had when I was about 13. My parents had bought a new minivan, and it was turquoise. And one day, shortly after we got the car, my father and I were out washing it. And I can't remember exactly what was said, but I said something about the car being green. And he looked at me like I was out of my mind. And he said, "What are you talking about? This car is blue." And it makes me think that, clearly he was my dad, he had raised me. Um, but we saw things, perceived things differently. I called this shade of turquoise green, and he was sure that it was blue. So it's helpful to realize that people see things differently. People have different experiences. Their brains work differently. Their hearts work differently. They perceive things differently. And we have to look, if there's something like 7 billion people in the world, there are probably going to be close to 7 billion different relationships or perceptions with the divine, with God. It's one thing that I love about the 12-step programs. They speak about the God of your understanding, which to me makes so much sense and it feels good to my heart. So for some of us, because we have been turned off by religion or have had some wounds um, through our experiences with church, my desire is how can you move from that, from being turned off, even though there's probably a deep yearning inside for a relationship with God, because I think that's how we're made. Anyway, um, how do you find a faith that works for you, that fits for you? And some of the things that I find to be really helpful, and I work with my clients to open up to when they're just not sure about the religion piece and not sure how to develop a relationship with God. You know, one of the first things I ask is that, what are the things that give you an experience of utter joy? Not just happiness, because happiness is one thing, but joy is the experience that just makes your heart swell. And it could be hearing a baby laugh or a flower that's just blossomed, um, a beautiful sunrise or sunset where you just kind of go, ah, that sense of awe. And as I say that, I just can feel my whole body tingling. To me, that's the divine whispering to us, giving us a little gift mm, of presence and spirit. Mhm. And recognizing, any of those little whispers, finding them more and more often. What are the things that you hold dear that really almost bring you to tears? They're so beautiful. There's so much awe. There's mm, utter delight. Maybe you can allow your heart to begin to recognize those as the whispers of God. And as you do, allowing them to continue to open your heart more and more. And again, for me, I think it's really important to recognize that we all have the ability to have a connection with God in our own way. And again, my way might not be your way. I know for my husband, um, he too was raised Catholic, and he had a younger sister who died of leukemia. And the church didn't support him, didn't give him nurturance. So he had turned away. But the other night, but he's found his way of knowing God differently. The other night we were watching um, a nature program, and there was a lot of beautiful scenery and kind of amazing mm, bits of nature. I think there were some like the Grand Canyon and rivers and sea creatures. Anyway, it was a beautiful nature program. And he turned to me at one point and said, "This is how I know God." And it just did something for me. It's like, yes, that is your way of knowing the divine. And it's beautiful. So let's celebrate that. Mm. I, I invite you actually to take a breath now and just allow yourself to maybe open to one experience of the divine, of God, that has you, just opening your heart more, just feeling, yes, I am in the presence of the divine. Mm. In whatever way feels right to you. and taking breaths. As you inhale, that's breathing in mm, the breath of the gift of God, of oxygen. Ah, and the exhalation is, it's all right. It's all good. So again, because I really want to express that we each have our own way, and finding a way that works for you is such a precious gift and experience. There's a story that I read many years ago about a shepherd out in some isolated part of the world, and every day he has this relationship with the divine, with the all that is. And every day he celebrates and worships, the air, the sun, the grass, the sheep, his life, everything. And he has this intimate connection with with the divine. And one day, one of the traveling preachers or priests comes along and sees this man worshiping God in his own way. And he says, "No, no, that's not how you really connect with God. That's not how you pray." And so he spends several days with the shepherd, teaching him how to pray in the way that he prays. And the shepherd learns these prayers, learns how to pray in the way of the preacher. And as he does, he practices, and as he's doing so, there's something that's lost. There's some joy and glory in the worship that just doesn't just falls away. But the preacher, has done his work. He's given this man um, the right way to pray. And he goes off towards the next town or the next group of people that he meets. And a couple of miles away, he hears this voice to stop, that he needs to go back to the shepherd and apologize, because what he's actually done has taken away the beauty and the glory of the shepherd's intimacy with the divine. That by having the right way to pray, he's lost some of the joy, the glory, the beauty of the man's intimate connection with God. So he does, and he really bows his heart and recognizes that this man had something really special, and that he was not meant to take it away. He had his own way. His way of prayer was perfect for him, but he needed to apologize to someone who had his own way of prayer and glorifying the divine. So I love that story because it's such a to me, it feeds my soul knowing that I have a way of glorifying God. You have a way that's your own, or that can be your own. We just have to find what it is and nurture it. So, obviously, sometimes we can get entangled up in the way things have to be, making sure we do things the right way, follow the right script, follow this way, not that way. And in doing so, sometimes we lose the real joy and the delight of our relationship with God. or the divine. And if that's happened to you and you would like to, find a new relationship with God, find your own way of having the divine as a beloved or an intimate, I'd love to have you reach out to me at soulsparkler@gmail.com. And we can have a conversation, 15 minutes or so, just to see if there's something that I can help you with to find that um, the soul sparkling and the joy and the real delight in loving God and being loved by God, by the divine. Again, that if you want to reach out, you can reach me at soulsparkler@gmail.com. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a blessed week. Lots of love to all of you. Bye for now. You've been listening to the She Moves Mountains podcast, coming to you every week. If you're a woman who wants to move mountains in your own life, please make sure to subscribe or follow this podcast. And if you've laughed or gotten teary or smiled knowingly, thinking, oh yeah, that's me too, please go ahead and rate the episode with 5 stars. It'll be a feel-good thing to do. Thanks a bunch. Lots of love and blessings to you. This is Kamala signing off. Until next week. Take care.